He didn't even look up when she entered the office. The city glittered behind him through floor-to-ceiling windows, but inside, the space felt suffocating, small, and merciless. Evelyn's hands shook as she clutched the small strip of plastic that could change everything. Her life, the life of the child growing inside her, and perhaps even his. She imagined 100 ways this conversation could go, each one ending differently, but nothing had prepared her for the weight of the moment. "Matthew?" Her voice wavered but carried a quiet resolve. He didn't respond, absorbed in the lines of numbers that sprawled across the documents before him. Every second of silence stretched into an eternity. Finally he exhaled, barely acknowledging her presence. "What now?" he asked, eyes still fixed on the papers. She stepped closer, her fingers gripping the test until it bent slightly. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air, fragile yet powerful. She expected shock, anger, confusion, anything. But Matthew leaned back, closed a folder, and let out a quiet, detached laugh. "I don't care," he said, his voice calm, indifferent, utterly cutting. Those 3 words pierced her like ice, but instead of collapsing, Evelyn felt something ignite inside her. A determination she had never known, a promise whispered to the tiny life within her. "You will be loved. Even if I have to do it alone." She turned, walked out without another word, leaving behind the man who could not see her, could not see them, and would soon learn the power of what he had abandoned. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the new life growing inside her, and to the courage that had just taken root. That day marked the end of one chapter and the fierce beginning of another. One built on resilience, love, and the unshakable promise of a better tomorrow. The first months were a storm, relentless and unyielding. Evelyn learned quickly that life would not pause for her exhaustion or fear. The mornings began before the sun, her body heavy with the weight of her growing children, her hands trembling from the constant effort of balancing work and survival. Nights offered no reprieve. She rocked her belly to sleep, whispering promises of love and protection to the tiny lives stirring within her. Each kick, each flutter was a reminder that she was not alone, that she carried hope and resilience inside her. She moved through the days like a quiet warrior. At the small cafe where she worked, she balanced trays of coffee with one hand while soothing the nausea that struck unannounced. She learned to stretch every dollar, to make meals last, to find beauty in moments others would overlook. The golden sunlight falling across her counter, the laughter of a customer, the gentle brush of wind through the open window. Each moment was a tiny victory, a testament to the life she refused to let break under the weight of abandonment. And through it all, the shadow of Matthew lingered, a ghost of what could have been, his indifferent eyes haunting her imagination. But slowly that shadow began to fade, replaced by a new focus. The life she was building, the love she could give alone, and the unwavering certainty that she could rise, no matter how harsh the storm. Evelyn discovered strength she had never known, a fierce, unshakable will that would carry her, and her children, into a world she intended to conquer on her own terms. The day the twins were born, Evelyn felt a surge of emotion she hadn't anticipated: fear, relief, awe, and an all-encompassing love that left her breathless. Lucas arrived first, small fists curled as if ready to take on the world, and then Owen, calm but watchful, his eyes already reflecting the depth of his soul. As she held them to her chest, tears streamed freely down her face. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe that despite the hardships, she had created something pure, something unbreakable. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and possibility, a strange combination that made the moment feel both fragile and eternal. Nurses moved around with practiced efficiency, yet Evelyn hardly noticed. Her world had contracted to the warmth of 2 tiny bodies against her heart, their soft breaths syncing with her own. Every cry, every hiccup, every stretch of their small fingers spoke to her in a language older than words. "We are here and we will survive." In those first sleepless nights, she discovered an inner resilience she hadn't known existed. She learned how to soothe both babies at once, to keep track of their feeding schedules, and to whisper comfort when the weight of the world pressed too hard against her. She imagined Matthew's indifferent face, the words "I don't care" echoing in her mind, but instead of breaking, they hardened into resolve. She was no longer waiting for anyone to save her. She was the protector, the guardian, the fierce love her children would carry with them forever. And in that quiet determination, Evelyn understood something profound. Life could abandon you, people could fail you, but courage and love, the kind she now held in her arms, could never be taken away. The years that followed were a blur of chaos, laughter, and relentless perseverance. Evelyn rose before dawn, balancing twin strollers in one hand and determination in the other, navigating streets that seemed larger than life, yet small enough to hold all of her dreams. Lucas, bold and fearless, chased every shadow, climbed every tree and tested every boundary, while Owen observed quietly, thoughtful and precise, his mind always absorbing, always calculating. Their personalities were as distinct as the blue eyes they had inherited, but together, they completed a world that was entirely theirs. Evelyn found work at a small museum, a sanctuary where the hum of footsteps and the soft echo of conversations allowed her a rare sense of peace. She guided children through galleries, her voice calm and warm, the twins exploring beside her, their laughter mingling with the whispers of curious visitors. It was here, amid colors and sculptures, that she finally felt the weight of solitude lift, replaced by the rhythm of a life carefully rebuilt. She marveled at the small victories. Lucas's first sketch of a painting, Owen's quiet fascination with the textures of sculpture, moments that reminded her that joy could grow even after heartbreak. She rarely thought of Matthew, and when she did, it was like recalling a shadow that no longer held power. She had built everything alone: love, stability, and hope. Yet fate, in its quiet way, had begun to move pieces she had long thought frozen. She did not know that the man who had once dismissed her, who had rejected what was rightfully his, was about to re-enter her life. And when he did, it would not be in the sterile world of boardrooms or wealth. It would be here, in this world of art and laughter, where she and her children had flourished without him, and where his presence would shake everything he had ignored for so long. The museum buzzed with quiet energy that afternoon, sunlight streaming through tall windows, painting the polished floors with warmth. Evelyn guided a small group of children through an abstract exhibition, her voice steady, patient, yet filled with a gentle excitement that made even the smallest visitor feel important. Lucas and Owen trailed beside her, their tiny hands holding miniature audio guides they weren't listening to, more absorbed in the colors and shapes than the explanations. She smiled at their curiosity, a sharp contrast to the fear and uncertainty she had carried for years. Then she heard it, a sound so familiar it made her freeze. Footsteps, deliberate and confident, echoing across the hall. Her heart stumbled as a memory she had tried to lock away resurfaced. The polished shoes, the controlled stride, the presence that had once commanded her world. She told herself it was impossible, that Matthew would never appear here, in this quiet sanctuary where life had begun anew. But the sound drew closer, each step slicing through her composure like a blade. And then she saw him. Matthew, standing beneath a towering landscape, older, sharper, but undeniably him. His eyes, those unmistakable blue eyes, widened as they fell upon her, a flicker of disbelief and something darker, rawer, washing over his face. Evelyn instinctively shifted, stepping in front of the boys, shielding them, though it was already too late. His gaze dropped, drawn involuntarily to Lucas and Owen, and for the first time, the man who had once dismissed her seemed powerless. The museum, once a refuge, became the stage for a reckoning years in the making. Evelyn felt a strange mix of fear and triumph. Her life, built on love, resilience and unwavering courage, was about to confront the ghost of indifference she had escaped. And in that moment she understood something profound. Some losses shape you, some victories arrive quietly, and some confrontations change everything without a single word being spoken. Matthew froze, the bustling museum fading into silence around him as his eyes locked on the two small figures who mirrored his own. Lucas, fearless and bold, stared back with curiosity untainted by fear. Owen, thoughtful and steady, regarded him with the same quiet intensity. In that instant, the years of indifference, the harsh words, the cold dismissal, all of it, crashed into a single, undeniable truth. He had walked away from something irreplaceable. Evelyn stood tall, her hand gently guiding the boys, her gaze unwavering. She had built a life without him, a life of love, laughter, and resilience. She had faced nights that never seemed to end, carried burdens that could have broken anyone, yet here she was, stronger, radiant, unshaken. Matthew's presence, once commanding, now felt almost fragile against the force of her determination. For the first time he truly saw what he had abandoned. The bond between mother and children was palpable, a force stronger than wealth, power, or ego. The boys' laughter filled the air, innocent yet powerful, their tiny hands tugging at the corners of his heart he hadn't realized he still possessed. Matthew wanted to speak, to reach out, to reclaim a moment lost to his own choices, but words faltered. The enormity of what he had missed left him silent, unable to bridge the years of absence. Evelyn's eyes softened, not in forgiveness, but in quiet recognition of her own triumph. She had endured, she had loved, and she had created a world that could not be shaken by his return. And as Matthew stood there, frozen, overwhelmed by the life he had ignored, Evelyn understood that some people are given a second chance, not to undo the past, but to witness the power of resilience and love in its purest form. The man who once said, "I don't care," now faced a truth more humbling than any boardroom defeat. The life he had walked away from was alive, thriving, and untouchable, held together by the heart of the woman he had underestimated.